Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, how are you doing today on this beautiful Monday evening? It is just incredible in my part of the world. The Steelers are 5-2, and I could not be more excited about that. I don't even know how to wrap my mind around what it is we watched yesterday. That's what I'm going to try to do here over the next hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, 5 hours, 17 hours, however long it takes us. I am going to sit here with my co-host, Deke, and talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers and their new quarterback, Russell Wilson. Gage, I just have to ask you right off the bat, initial reactions, thoughts, where are you at? How are you coping with the Russell Wilson society that we're now living in?
You know, Mr. Moats, I do have to say, first of all, I love the shades.
Yeah, they were to block out the glare from how fucking wrong I was.
Liz, I was right there with you. You know, I mean, I'm still initial thoughts, right? Initial thoughts are that Russ did better than I thought he would, but I also think that he didn't do as well as people are saying he did.
Ooh, okay, spicy.
I just like he did well. He did well, and what did he do? He led us to victory. Did he have a single pass that was completed that was on target? Because I
Um,
couldn't find one. Even the touchdown pass to Pickens, it was a terrible pass that should have been picked. Like you talk about the other stuff that I don't know how many near picks he had or should have had in this game, but it was a lot. But we got the win and we won by a sizable amount, so I'm not going to complain too much.
okay. I mean, I could hear that, but man, I think it's a little bit of like having to adapt to watching a different style quarterback play, and it's just
Mhm.
been a long time since we've seen um a quarterback like Russell Wilson play for the Steelers, like a guy who has
Mhm.
savvy and a guy who has sort of that veteran guile and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I said it throughout the video. It's like sometimes it's just giving your guy a chance,
Mhm.
and sometimes that's the job of the quarterback. You don't always need to be, some laser focused Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, throw it through the defender throw. Sometimes you just got to be like, yo, fuck it. George is down there somewhere and give him a
Yeah.
chance. And it worked out for them for the most part. I mean, yeah, you could say that some of them were off target, but they got there, man. He threw for 200 and 60 something yards on like not that many completions. I think they had 5 plays over 30 yards.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I mean, again, there's only so much complaining you can do whenever you put up 37 points in an offensively anorexic town like Pittsburgh. I'm not going to complain by any stretch of the imagination. When I saw these people like, wow, Russ really did go off, and he really. Okay, let's pump the brakes a little bit. He did okay. He did a good job. We won the game. Good, but I don't know. I don't know. That's about where I stand on it. It was a good performance over a team we should have beat, and we beat them. And also, it felt really good to stick it to Aaron Rodgers,
It
and that
always
that
feels
always
good.
warms my heart.
It always feels good to beat Aaron Rodgers. Have
Scientology is screwed up, and the fact that he is a nice representative of it, I think, is kind of apropos.
I'm not touching that one today, Chief. But I hear you. Shout out Mateo dropping $10 in the jar. Let's
Wow,
go.
starting off
He
strong.
is acknowledging Danger Russ Wilson. Nothing to say. Just thanks for the videos today.
God bless, man.
Appreciate that, man. Yeah. For those who watch the show, hopefully most of you. YouTube and NFL is just making my life hard again. So like not letting me upload the full
Yeah.
video again. I don't know what to do. This is what I do for a living. I'm a professional. I'm trying. So like if you want the show totally full, no ads, nothing like that, you can subscribe on Patreon. It's $4 a month. I think it's $1 a week. It's more than reasonable in my opinion. Patreon.com/5SMU, or you can be like Mateo and drop a couple bucks in the jar while we stream. We appreciate you greatly. Keep the lights on, keep the subscriptions rolling, and um, you know, so
Hmm.
we appreciate the love, but it's getting
Especially through
super.
these trying times,
It
with
is.
YouTube and the algorithm and all that.
It is getting so wicked annoying, but we got it out there. It's in 4 clips. You can watch it one after the other. Um, but yeah,
Quality's still just as good as it always was.
I mean, I felt like it was a great show. I really wanted it to be
Hmm.
a banger, and I think it still is a banger. It's just split into 4 chunks. Super annoying, but hey, that's not what the people are here for. They're here for us to talk about actual football, not how the sausage is made. And like, yeah, I I don't know. I hear you, but I think that just things. It was just little things, man, where it just felt different. I thought that
Hmm.
the Van Jefferson touchdown, while that's something that you can look at the top 15 quarterbacks in the league and just completely take that for granted. You don't think
Hmm.
twice about that touchdown pass if you have CJ Stroud or Lamar Jackson or whatever. But the world that we've been in post Ben with Mitchell Trubisky and Kenny Pickett, um, that wasn't something you could take for granted. That was just a perfect little timing throw, and they scored a touchdown. And they, ultimately Wilson accounted for 3 touchdowns through 2 through the air. And that's the one I would argue with you that touchdown pass he threw to Pickens was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. It's exactly where you want it to be. He mossed the dude.
Okay.
He used his athleticism and he jumped over him and he got it. Like that's if the completion percentage on that throw was 100%, then it's where you want the throw to be.
Yeah, listen, to kind of deviate, not deviate, but to kind of piggyback off that, where they say that missing by an inch or missing by a mile are worth just as much. Like ultimately, if it's a touchdown pass, it's a touchdown pass, and there's nothing else to it. But we'll agree to disagree on how good that throw was. But at the end of the day, being accounted for 3 touchdowns and whatnot is good. I can't really complain about that. I was nice. It was nice to see someone get a QB sneak in Pittsburgh without getting a bloody nose and getting injured for the rest of the game.
True.
So, so I mean, there's a whole lot to be happy about, and I mean, outside of that one touchdown drive where Aaron Rodgers just diced us up with no problem, outside of that one singular drive where it seemed like they made some pretty solid adjustments to that, they did pretty well. I mean, they moved the ball a little better than 15 points would indicate, but at the end of the day, if Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams only put up 15 points on your defense, not a whole lot to complain about.
Well, yeah, that's a thing too that I feel like no one's really talking about today because as always, I mean, we just end up talking about the quarterbacks,
The
which
quarterbacks,
yeah, I mean, because it's always
always.
it's always where you end up. Yeah, the defense was, I thought, phenomenal. I thought they started off really poorly, but they settled in nicely. I think you're seeing a number of things happen there. They're finding their roles with the
I was
middle
just gonna say
linebackers. I think especially you're seeing Peyton Wilson get used a lot as a coverage linebacker,
pass
and
defender, yeah.
yeah, and he's doing a really good job. He looks to be as advertised, so that's very exciting.
When was the last time you saw any linebacker on this team defend a pass worth a damn? Is the answer Ryan Shazier? I mean, if you want to be technical with me, you could say Avery Williamson from a couple years ago, but generally speaking, Ryan Shazier is probably going to be your answer. So,
Yeah.
my God, is it refreshing to? We're still by no means perfect in this regard, but you saw that we were actually able to defend the middle of the field a bit. Isn't that fucking crazy? After Tom Brady tortured us in the middle of the field for 20 years, we finally figured out some kind of response to it. So there's a whole lot to be. I don't know why I'm complaining so much. This is a really good game. I don't have a lot to complain about, but it's just it's funny how the season's shaping out to me. Or like how you mentioned that we started off slow on defense, as has kind of been the theme this year. We tend to give up. I don't know if it's necessarily a immediate touchdown, but it always seems to be really early on. We give up 10, 7, 17, but then like our defense just hunkers down, and all of a sudden we don't give up anything. So I don't know how I
Yeah,
feel about it.
yeah, it feels like there's like a feeling out process. I
Yeah.
thought, I mean, I expected a battle. I was the one all week that was like, guys, it's Aaron Rodgers. Like, I never had a good feel about this game solely because it's Aaron Rodgers. Like, that's
hmm
not just a guy. I don't care how old he is. It's Aaron Rodgers. Um,
And guys with high football IQ tend to do really well against our defense
yeah,
just for the fact that they know what's coming. So
they
I was
know where to
terrified.
go. They know where to
Exactly.
go. And you can sometimes win with phenomenal plays. I mean, the Steelers have done that throughout, so much of our lifetimes where they've just, big James Harrison or Troy Polamalu plays at big moments, have turned games, countless times. But we didn't really. I
That's
mean,
all you
well, we
need.
did. We did see that though yesterday. Now I gotta say, somebody in the chat said, "Fanatic, how about Beanie Baby? He killed it."
Yeah, there he is.
The beanbag man, he made the biggest. I mean, the as far as like a single, I didn't give it the play of the game. I don't think, did I? I don't remember, but
I
the
don't think so.
just like the single biggest like change of a momentum in the play, that interception on Rodgers. Both of them really were just huge.
I had 2 guys coming into this year. I had 2 guys I really wanted to see. Every year I have my assigned dudes. And I don't remember if it was like a year or two ago, Keanu Benton and Najee Harris, these guys that we drafted. I'm like, all right, he's the guy I want to focus on.
Yeah,
And I had 2 of those this year. I don't remember if Beanie's a rookie or not. But point being, Corey Trice and Beanie Bishop. Now Corey actually had some pretty good plays, like to start off the year before he got
he
injured.
did.
God bless him. Shout out to Corey. And also Beanie has been like, I don't want to say excellent. I don't want to overhype him, but like 2 or 3 plays a game, he just launches in and has like a critical breakup or gets a pick or gets his hand on a ball on a critical third down. You're just like, wait, was that Beanie? Where the hell did he come from? I'm really happy to see that's working out for the dude. I mean, he's one of those guys where again, not the most athletic, not the best athlete at his position, but as a guy who kind of just knows where to be with the ball.
Yeah, I'd felt like the perception generally was that he was not playing that super well. And I mean, it's a lot. That
As of
position,
late, he's been better, is what I mean.
yeah, that position in that defense is a lot to it's a lot to ask a rookie, especially an undrafted rookie. Even though he did come in with pedigree, I mean, he was considered like probably the best slot corner in college last year. I think he led the nation in pass breakups or something, if I
Something
remember.
like that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not like he was, those guys just, I don't know why, but they just will always be available either undrafted or seventh round or
Yeah.
something. They're so valuable though. Um, I still miss Mike Hilton, but
You knew you were gonna say it.
I do. I just love Mike Hilton. A guy, sue me, okay? Guy was great for the Steelers. He deserved way more.
He did deserve way more, and then I lost like any and all compassion I had for him when he went to the Bungles and wouldn't stop running his mouth.
Yeah, but that's who he is, though. You can't hate him for being who he is. That's the thing, I don't blame him one bit. Yeah, yeah, the defense. Yeah, Beanie Bishop was phenomenal. The second pick, that was a really nice
He got
play.
lucky.
Yeah, I mean that guy makes that catch most of the time. Um, maybe getting his hand up messed with the guy or something. But and he still caught it and almost returned it for a touchdown, so I'm not gonna knock him. But that first one was sick, dude. That first one was a nice pick because he kind of got his body turned, and then Rogers
Pulled
saw,
right.
yeah, and Rogers threw, and then he turned right and just got it with the one arm. Couple of sick one arms catch. I'm telling you, gloves are getting crazy because that
Mm-hmm.
catch Pat Fryermuth made, unbelievable.
I wonder how much Stickum was a big deal when like Jerry Rice was playing, so I can only imagine what's going on them. I do know about cutters, and I do like I when I was at Walmart like a couple times, like I like put on the cutters to see what they were like, and like just imagine catching a football with cutters. It has to be twice as easy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You're basically just putting glue on your freaking hands. I mean, like one-handed catches are still impressive, of course, especially whenever you have a guy like a guy with a cannon for an arm, like chucking it as hard as he can at you, and you're still catching it with one hand. But admittedly, one-handed catches don't impress me as much as they used to. Have you anybody out there that's ever owned cutters or anything? You know what I'm talking.
Yeah, no, the tech has just gotten so crazy. But I mean, you love to see it. That Fryermuth catch was sweet, man. And that was nice. That was a nice play. And then I would argue too, even like the couple little plays, because you were saying Wilson was off target a bit. Couple little plays though. That big 3rd and 5 conversion to Jalen Warren, where he kind of caught it and then stuck his foot in the ground and spun up field, and he shucked two
Yeah.
guys out of their shoes. Wilson put that right where it needed to be for him to turn into the spin. He really did,
Mm.
and like those are just those little veteran things. He did have a very blocky first quarter and a half, and I was miserable watching it too. Anybody in our Discord can attest to that. I was dead ass like we got no chance to win this game. Once it got to 9, I was like, this is over. Um, but they stepped up
No,
and they put the pedal to the metal and they blew him out of the water in the second half.
they did. They did. And I mean, Russ, like for some of those deep ball completions, I mean, we got to like shout out George Pickens because I mean, that was like George Pickens for some reason has gotten like no credit in this game. It's all been going to Russell Wilson and the defense and whatnot. But that was like, oh, and Beanie Bishop. But like, that was just as much of a George Pickens game as I feel anything else. What was the one play like in the first or second quarter where he ripped the ball out of the defender's hands on what would be an interception on
Yeah.
another shitty underthrown ball by Russell Wilson, by the way. George Pickens, I think, single-handedly saved Russ from having like 2 or 3 picks. Like George himself, shout out to him. George had a freaking baller game as well. Mr.
Yeah.
Always Open. He wasn't open very much yesterday. I mean, Sauce Gardner had him covered like a blanket, but he still had a couple good catches.
Okay,
so
but then
good for
again,
him.
another thing I'll point out about veteran quarterback play: every time he wasn't on Sauce Gardner, Russell Wilson went to him, and that's part of being a veteran. How many times did we
Mhm.
see stuff like that the last couple of years with the Pickett's of the world, where you say,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
like you schemed Pickens off of their best defender, now you go to him. I remember back in the day, like
Calvin
when you
Austin.
yeah, back in the day, you'd see Antonio in 1-on-1, and you're like, oh, he's gonna go to him, and everybody in the world knows that it's gonna happen, but it doesn't matter. And I think that's that's the kind of rapport I think Wilson will probably hope to have with Pickens, and it remains to be seen if it's possible. Do you feel any better about wide receiver two position after these last two games, or not really?
Well, um, so I guess if you want me to like specifically answer the question, no, but that's because I didn't really feel too bad about the wide receiver two position anyway.
Okay.
I think CA3 is fine. I think Van Jefferson's fine. I mean, like, are they really wide receiver two caliber? No, probably not. They're more wide receiver three territory. But I can take George Pickens, Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin, and I can take that with a good running game and with Arthur Smith, who pretty much never goes like into 11 personnel, let's say. Like I can take that because he's more of a tight end guy and a more of a run game guy anyway. But certainly coming into next season, like if we don't take at least two draft picks in next year's draft on receivers, I would be shocked.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, no, like, am I super over the moon about the wide receivers? No, but I can take it or leave it because of who we have as OC. So it's whatever.
Okay. I think that that's a pretty fair thing. Yeah, I mean, you got to feel a little maybe better about Van Jefferson after yesterday. I mean, just looking like he's alive this week was a
Yeah.
positive.
Hey,
You
he
know,
did something.
Calvin, though, I feel like Calvin Austin could kind of become this like slot weapon if they wanted to use him in that way. I feel like we haven't really had a conversation about the slot as a position in the Steelers offense ever
Yeah.
since Canada got here. But I feel
It
like,
was gone.
yeah, well, because it didn't exist, because there
No.
was never more than one pass option on any given play.
Yeah.
um but I think he could kind of turn into that. I love that play late in the game where they just said screw it and got aggressive and went play action pass, and he was wide open. I mean, he was as open as I'd seen any Steeler be in 5 or 6 years, honestly. I mean, there was nobody near him. And how many times have we been saying these last couple of years, like, they just don't scheme anything? And I get it, you're not going to complete 40-yard bombs all over the place, but I mean, literally at the scale of like years and years, we're saying like they haven't
No
had a
one's
guy
open.
open 30 yards down the field in years. Like, it happens. Like, the defenders just fall down. Like, it happens for most teams. It just happens, even just by happenstance. But for the Steelers, it was like pulling teeth. And whatever you want to say about it, I mean, it happened more often yesterday.
It did. It did. And it has all year this year. I really do want to give Arthur Smith that credit because it's something that you notice when you don't see it. Like when you see a guy wide open and there's nobody even in the same area code as him and it's not against our defense. It's
Yeah.
very nice to see. And so yeah, I mean, like I think Arthur's a big part to a big hand to play in that. And I mean, it's not like we're doing things that are super. I do remember saying this like before I was off the Matt Canada train. I said it's not like split zone. Well, we're doing more outside zone, but you know what I mean. But it's not like split zone and play action Yankee concepts don't work. Like virtually every goddamn team uses them. And so now that we're doing a lot of the same things we were doing before, but now we're just doing them with a competent OC. It's nice to see.
Yeah, I'm sure what you said was very informative, but I stopped listening after you said Matt Canada trained.
Yeah,
That's a wild place to have been. It's funny to
it
remember
was.
you being in that camp. Yeah, I mean,
I
yeah.
still don't think that I was wrong initially. I was just wrong when the season started.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people were hopeful. He just ended up
Sure.
being absolutely horrible, and I think
Yeah,
he'll probably never have a job at that level in the NFL ever again.
probably not. And I always wonder, like, because guys like Brett Coleman and EJ Snyder and these other guys that break down film and do the things that I don't actually want to do, where they kind of ask, like, was Matt Canada solely the problem? Was Kenny solely the problem? Or was it two things that probably were okay to bad, just making each other infinitely worse the longer that they were around each other? So I don't know. It was a whole bunch of. It's funny how removing one guy from the building is enough to completely turn the fortune of something around. Our entire offense, even though it's not great, is leaps and bounds where it was. And if I can use just some direct parallel to that, it's funny how the second that Dan Snyder left, all of a sudden Washington has turned it around pretty much overnight.
Oh yeah, I mean, an organization is everything in football. I mean,
Hmm.
more than any other pro sport, you can't just buy a couple stud players and compete in football. You have to have a real I mean, look at the Jets. Look at the Jets. I mean, it's a perfect example.
Yeah,
Does it
yeah.
feel I don't get them firing their coach at all.
No,
I don't get it
no.
at all. What was that about? Like really what I don't even know what like the rumor people say. Was it I mean did him and Rogers just didn't like each other? Like
Rogers wants to be he wants to be in charge. Like
I
he
thought they
wants
were
to have
boys. I thought that's why he went there. I thought he was friends with him.
no Hackett.
Oh,
Hackett, the OC is Robert Saleh, the head coach. Apparently, him and Saleh butted heads pretty much from the get go. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is the kind of guy that doesn't like to hear no, and so when you have kind of a hardened kind of a head coach like Saleh, don't say that disparagingly. He's very
yeah.
good at what he does, but you know that's never going to work. Especially again, a guy like Rodgers, who is like he is just the divaist of all divas. I can't say enough bad things about Rodgers, but anyway, it's also just another thing where Robert Saleh was in charge of the defense. He wasn't in charge of the offense. I mean, like, and the fact that Saleh, for his entire tenure, pretty much in New York, the Jets have been a top defense, if not the top defense. It's not just Sauce Gardner; they have a fucking hell of a unit over there.
They
And it's
do.
like, let's fire the guy who has nothing to do with the offense because of how bad the offense is, and give everything to Aaron Rodgers. And then for Aaron Rodgers to think that we're dumb enough for him to go on TV and pretend he had nothing to do with that is so funny to me. So I'm so
Yeah.
glad they lost.
Yeah, I agree. It was just a weird choice. I don't know. I didn't get that. Maybe I'll ask my friends who
And
are
their
Jets
defense looked like
fans.
shit.
Yeah,
Did their defense look good yesterday? I don't think
no,
so.
they couldn't stop the run and they couldn't stop the pass. They gave up 410 yards to the Steelers. Come on,
To the
that's
Steelers.
yeah. Come on, now we're dunking on fools.
I
Um,
know. It's
I know
hilarious.
I mean, what do we got now? It's in the last two games we won by what?
It was 32 and 37.
32 and 30. Okay, yeah. I thought it was 20. I don't remember scores anymore.
Now
I'm
I gotta
too
look it
old for
up.
this.
Hey man, you were
Um,
the one editing the games together.
I know, but I don't even like process it. I just like I just like say it. I don't know.
Yeah, 32-37.
32. Okay, so they won by 19 and then they won by 22. So in the
Mm-hmm.
last two games, the Steelers have a point differential of plus 41. Is it time that we start reassessing whether or not the Steelers are not just like a good team, but maybe a pretty good team? Like maybe like a bordering on pretty good competing level kind of team? I mean, how many teams in the AFC are you just without even thinking about it? Yes, they're better than the Steelers. Okay, Chiefs, Bills, right?
Hmm. I
Who
would need
else?
like a full list of like teams in front of me. I have this horrible thing where once you ask me to name me my favorite song, I forgot every song I've ever heard in my life. So let me look up the AFC real quick,
Okay, well, look, I got the standings up in front of me. AFC
please.
East: Bills, Dolphins, Jets, Patriots. Just the Bills.
Bills.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
it.
yeah, that's about it.
One team. AFC West: Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, Raiders.
Chiefs. What was the other ones?
Chargers, Broncos, Raiders. I mean, we beat
Nah,
all three of them.
we beat all three of them. Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
It's okay. We got two.
and then the AFC South: Texans, Colts, Jaguars, Titans. Maybe the Texans.
Texans, Colts, and for some reason, like I would have like a weird feeling. Do we play the Jaguars this year?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. But like, imagine if we did. I have some
Yeah, but
odd feeling we would
they're
lose that
2 and
game.
5. Even the Colts,
Yeah.
I don't care. They beat us. The Steelers are better than the Colts. If they played again, they'd beat them. I have no problem saying
Maybe.
that. They're a better team.
Maybe.
And then the AFC North, I don't think you can definably say anyone's that much better than the Steelers. Maybe the Ravens. But either way, the point is there's 3 or 4 teams in the AFC that you could say without question they're better than the Steelers. And I think you can make a case that, you know, they can punch above their weight class a little bit.
Well, that's true. I mean, any team, like, okay, run heavy defensive football teams that make few mistakes and limit your amount of possessions, like, that strategy is always going to work in some capacity. Like, even though it's a quote unquote outdated strategy and whatnot, football is always a big circle. Everything always comes around. But for now, that's an outdated philosophy and whatnot. And yet it's something that you see probably once every decade or so. A team makes it to the Super Bowl and wins with no semblance of offense. You know, it just happens sometimes. I mean, like, yeah, you can talk about the Seahawks putting up 43 points, but I mean, that wasn't offensive production by any means. You know, the Broncos won the Super Bowl next year after that with the the husk corpse of Peyton Manning out
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
So there
yeah.
are just times where defense and just enough of not fucking up, the Belichick style, if you will, that will work. Will it
Yeah.
take us to a Super Bowl with Russell Wilson this year? I highly doubt it. But who the hell knows, man? I'm just enjoying the oh no, I'm gonna say it, aren't I? I'm enjoying the ride.
Yes, yes, yes. Let's ride, Steelers Nation.
Let's weld.
Yeah, Les Weld. What did you see his post game interview on NBC last night? He was like,
No.
they were like, the lady was like, "Do you want to debut your new catchphrase?" And he was like, "No, we'll wait till the end." And I was like, "The end of what?" And then he walked away. He's so weird. He's so weird. I am so happy for him, and I'm being so positive today. But he's so weird. Like when he talks, I just don't even understand like what he's talking about. He's like a Mike Tomlin on the field, except his metaphors, like he just is like a random word generator. It's unbelievable. He sounds eloquent and smart and whatever, but then you listen to the totality of the words and you're like, what the
You're
hell
like,
did
what the
that guy
hell did
just
he
say?
say?
Yeah, I know.
Dude, Russell Wilson gives me Tom Cruise energy, and I will not be
No,
elaborating further.
I knew you were gonna say American Psycho vibes, and
A little bit. A
yeah,
little
that's who
bit.
Christian Bale based that performance off of.
Yeah,
If you
from
didn't
that,
know
that
that,
that
yeah.
one interview with him and Letterman from like 2000, where he just like was overly happy to hear about what Letterman had for lunch or whatever. Yeah,
Um,
that guy's
yeah,
terrifying.
he is, but
Tom Cruise seems like a nice guy, but
he's a
he
good
is terrifying.
actor. He's in some really good movies, though.
Oh,
He's in some
oh,
really good movies. Have you ever seen Vanilla
oh.
Sky?
I don't. No, I don't think so.
You should.
I'm predominantly a Mission Impossible fan. For talking about Tom
Okay,
Cruise's
okay,
work,
all right,
I'm a
fair
little
enough.
boring in that regard.
Fair enough, fair enough, fair enough. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm just pretty happy with the performance yesterday. 5-2 looks really nice in the record books. I mean, they're not turning the ball over. Their turnover
Yeah,
differential is really great. I mean, what do we
it's like one of the best in the league, I think.
well, we've
It's like
thrown
third.
what? One interception in 7 games?
Yeah.
Like that's good for like a good I think Mahomes had 2 yesterday alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean you see that sometimes with guys where they get off to these like super slow, sluggish starts. You know what I mean? Then they just kind of figure it out towards the end of the year.
Oh yeah. I
So that'll be
mean,
fun to see if they can do that.
but I mean, you got to be happy with the production.
Mm.
Do you have I mean, okay, even if you're going to be the person that's going to say like okay, I'm not as like super hyped on the Russell Wilson train as a lot of people are today.
Well, you
Uh
can't bench him now.
no, I know, but I'm saying are you at least like still acknowledging like it was probably the right move?
I feel like we would have won that game yesterday with Justin Fields as well.
You think?
And so that kind of leaves me in like I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm not trying to like
No, no,
avoid
no.
your
I mean,
question
it's
here.
yeah.
But like I think Justin would have won that game. So like would we ultimately be in any different of a place with it? Probably not. We'd probably still be 5-2. But in the interest of not being difficult and directly answering the question, it wasn't a bad move. I'm not super upset about it. You have to stick with Russ as your starter now. You can have him put up 37 points and then take it away and bench him again. Like that's not really fair to anybody. You already screwed over Fields. We can't screw over 2 quarterbacks in the same season. So we just
let
keep
me
it for what we
introduce
got
you
right
to
now.
the 2024 Pittsburgh Steelers or the 2023 Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, they screwed over
we
like
can't do
3
it 2 years in a
quarterbacks.
row.
Yeah.
We did 3, so we have to learn from our mistakes at some point.
Oh my God.
Oh
Remember
man, Mason
Trubisky?
Rudolph's gonna start.
Remember Trubisky playing last year? Like that brutal 3-game
Excruciatingly,
stretch.
yes.
He played against the Cardinals, and then
The Ravens.
did he play against the Ravens last year?
Well, actually, it might have been the year before, but that
No,
Ravens
he played
game
the Ravens. Yeah, that was his first year here. No, last year he played the Cardinals, the Colts,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
whatever that other. Oh, and the Patriots. God, those games were so brutal. That's still, I'm not going to even like get stuck on that because I'm all positive vibes, but I stand by everything I said in the wake of those games. That was the worst stretch of Tomlin's career. I have no, and if that's what led him to being more aggressive this offseason and bringing in Russell Wilson,
Then it was worth it.
then it was worth it. But like, man, that really was like, even as I think back to it now, that was the worst stretch of game. I mean, those teams were horrible.
I
They got
love
killed.
mentioning. They did, and like those games were never at any point even remotely competitive. Which, by the way, just shows you how good the Chicago defense was during
Yeah,
the Vic Fangio era. Shout out to him because he kept Mitch Trubisky he got Mitch Trubisky to a 12-4
that's nuts.
record
That's
with that
nuts.
defense.
That's
Shout out to
insane.
Vic Fangio.
Yeah, no, that's insane. That guy sucks on ice.
He's so bad. And I love mentioning in videos. I almost make it like a theme now to mention that he is the worst quarterback in the history of our 100-year franchise. And people will debate me on that. And yet, so far, the only one I've seen that has merit is Cliff. What's his name from the '60s?
Oh,
And if you
nice.
are bringing quarterbacks from almost over 60 years ago to try to tell me that they're worse than Mitch Trubisky, I think my point's been proven.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He's pretty bad. He's pretty bad.
That
Yeah,
Baltimore game is one of the worst Steeler games I've ever
it
seen,
is.
where
One,
he just threw deep
yeah,
balls 10 yards over their
three
head to him.
three interceptions. One of them to Pat Queen, I think, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly.
I think two of them were to Pat Queen, I think.
Yeah. Let me ask you, if nobody wants to hear this, so this is just a quick aside, but if uh if Josh Allen went out for the year before week 1 and ran it with the same team with Mitchell Trubisky, how many games would they win?
You know, the Bills have become Jesus Christ, let me try that again. They've become kind of the Josh Allen show in recent years.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to bet. I'm not saying it'd be a Curtis Painter situation when Manning went out, but it'd be kind of I'm going to say five. I'm going to say 5 wins because I
so
do think
they go
Sean
from
McDermott's
so they
defense.
go from arguably being the best team in the AFC or even football right now. I think they have
Mhm.
the biggest point differential in the NFL.
Mhm.
They go from being arguably the best team in football to being a 5-win team.
Yeah, I would say so.
Horrible, horrible.
Peyton Manning,
Yeah,
whenever
that's
he
true.
was injured, he went from what it was a 13-win team to a 2-win team.
Yeah, that's true. They did fall off a cliff that year.
Oh man,
All
they
right.
totally tanked. By the way, can we agree that they tanked?
Yeah, I don't know. I got no problem with tanking.
No, and I
Um,
don't have any problem with tanking
I
either.
think
I
it
mean,
should
you're a
be
basketball
more
guy, so you get it.
I think it should be more accepted in football than it is in other
Hmm.
sports because it is really shitty to fans in like basketball where it's like they play 40 games at home. You
Yeah,
know, it's football. It's like okay, you get to get to the middle of October and it's not going well. I mean, you're 2-7. It's not going to happen. But like a basketball or baseball team, I mean, you can get hot. The Mets did it this year, not to get my Mets shout out in, but they were 11 games
there
under
it is.
500 in June, and they went on a hot streak, and they ended up being a game away from the World Series. So I kind of hate taking in the sports where it's more accepted more than I do in football. Football, I don't care. You get to 2-9, what's the difference? There's no point in playing your quarterback. You might as well send him home, keep him safe for next year.
Yeah, you're not parading them around for 9 months out of the year or whatever. Or it's just you're constantly just watching shit. The trust the process Sixers, who like did they even? I'm showing my ignorance to basketball here, but didn't the trust the process Sixers like never even make it like past like the divisional round or conference or whatever it was?
They
Like,
lost to the Knicks in the playoffs last year.
oh, well, good for them. And wait, the Knicks made the playoffs?
The Knicks have made the playoffs like 3 out of the last 4 years, man. They won a playoff
I
series the last 2
I don't know
seasons.
anything about basketball. I just love throwing jabs at you about the Knicks.
And it's okay. They're good now. They're better than the Steelers. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, relative to
Yeah,
their league, they're
okay.
way better than the Steelers are right now, which is
You
so
can't say
funny. That's never been the case in my life.
that they're better than the Army Black Knights though.
Oh,
They're on quite of a run.
shout out the Army Black Knights. What's the chat saying here? Bubby Brister used to be our franchise guy, and he was in Pizza Hut commercials and everything.
Mitch
Shout out.
Trubisky Bubby Brister is better than Mitch Trubisky.
Um, yeah,
Not
definitely.
by
Bubby,
much,
no, he
but
was
he was.
definitely better. He was definitely better. The Steelers. Oh yeah, there's some talk about the gray face masks and the block number jerseys, and I have to say, primo. I had been campaigning for it in past seasons. The gray face mask elevates the look. It does.
I agree.
It just makes it just a little more perfect. I love it. That those should be their they got to go back to that as the uniform base. I am
Like the
dying.
block numbers.
Yeah, I am dying to see a modern white version of that jersey. I think it would look
Yeah.
with the like modern jersey templates, because we just haven't
Yeah.
seen that. They haven't done that in 30 years or something. Um, I think it would look so sharp. I really think they should just go to it full time.
I don't know if you want my opinion on jerseys because I agree. I like the black jerseys and like if those wanted to be the primary, kind of like they were in the what is it, the 70s or 80s or whatever it was,
Mm-hmm.
then I'd be totally down for that. I think that they should bust out the Bumblebee jerseys a couple times a year.
Oh
I'm a
yeah, of
huge
course.
fan of the Bumblebees. Everybody, dude, see, you and I like the Bumblebees. From what I understand, most Steeler fans hate the Bumblebees, and I
Haters.
don't care.
Haters,
I don't
haters,
care.
hate. You got no creativity. You're not comfortable with yourself if you don't hate the bumblebees. You got no soul. All right? No, hating the bumblebees is like hating apple pie, okay? If you're going to tell me that I'm going to give you a hot slice of apple
Americana.
pie with a scoop of vanilla ice cream on it and you're going to be like, "Well, I don't like this." Then okay, you're probably somebody who doesn't like the Bumblebee jerseys. You're just a hater, and I'm the biggest hater of them all. But the Bumblebee jersey is goated. It's fun. It's football, dude. Like I
Yeah,
want to
man.
say, like, what did they look like 100 years ago? Who gives a shit? I love even bad throwbacks. I love the
Yeah.
terrible Broncos red and yellow one. Remember with the Kyle Orton era Broncos would wear those once a
The
year.
Buccaneers creamsicle
Well,
jerseys.
that's classic. Everybody loves those. But the irony of that is everyone fucking hated it when it was a real thing. It's funny how that comes back and it's like cyclical.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean those jerseys like the bumblebees to circle back to the bumblebee jerseys where I have heard so many fans over the years talk about how gross they are and how bad they look. And like I oddly kind of agree, but I love them nonetheless. And like especially because you see like they look like prison convicts in those old like black and white footage of the old Pittsburgh Pirates from the 30s. So it's fun to see how that kind of gets reimagined in the modern day. Like I don't know,
Yeah.
they need to be an actual part of the rotation.
Yeah, no, I'm with you totally. I've always been a fan of the Bumblebees. Mateo likes the Color Rush kit. Andre loves the Bumblebees. He says they grew on him over time. Uh Mr. Tummy likes the Bumblebee jerseys, but not the tan
Yeah.
pants. I get that,
Yeah.
but it's part of the look. If they wore like totally contrasty black pants, it would look weird too.
Mm.
Um, I don't know. I don't mind it. I think my favorite look all time for the Steelers has to be the 75th anniversary, like 2007 era
Mm.
throwback, the one that like Ben and Hines wore a lot with the
The
yellow
white
number.
pants.
Yeah, the yellow numbers with the white
Oh
pants
man.
and the yellow helmet. I loved the
Yeah.
yellow helmet. I would kill to see the Steelers with a yellow helmet with the modern helmets. You don't like that one?
No, like it just took me a while
Oh
to
yeah.
register which ones we were talking about. They look so odd to me, but in like a good way. Like I'm not shitting on them at all. You know, it's just like it's so out of place. It almost feels like if the Steelers were in a parallel universe or something. So
Yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah, I like them just because like for so long I was always a jersey person. I've always collected jerseys even when I was a kid and
Hmm.
like the for the longest time the Steelers just most of like my early teens and stuff, the Steelers just never had any alternate jerseys.
Yeah,
Um like they just didn't from the mid 90s until like 2007 or whatever. They never had an alternate. Those all those like 2005 teams, they never wore any third jersey or anything. And then so when they
yeah.
finally had those come out, I was like, "Yes, like this is so sick." And I have so many memories of them like those games against the Ravens on like Sunday or Monday night. Ben was wearing those in that game when he threw like 5 touchdowns in the first half against
The Todd Haley era.
Baltimore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good times,
Uh,
man.
Oh man, and I think that shows you though how much talent goes into a successful scheme, though, because I mean, like Todd Haley, if you saw his stuff when he was on the Steelers, you'd think that he was I won't say top of the line OC, but we'll say a top half of the league OC, and then you see him go over to Cleveland, and he's telling Baker Mayfield to chuck it deep 40 yards every play, and you're like, oh. he had been. It's weird. It's weird how that stuff goes.
I love that you transitioned a Jersey conversation to Todd Haley. You're such an offensive coordinator, Mark. You love offensive coordinators.
I don't know. I get more like I've been reading playbooks lately, so maybe that's just
Whoa.
kind of where my brain's been as of late. Oh, don't be impressed at all. It's I know very little of what I'm reading, but it's fun to like read about the run
Listen,
and shoot and things like that.
listen, I don't even know how to read. So I just know how to watch football and make jokes about it. I
And
have
edit videos.
Yeah, I the
Good reading.
words are meaningless to me. That's why I say completely random smatterings of them in my show. People are always like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Dead ass, honestly, I have no idea. I just watch the Steelers and the words spew out of my brain. I don't know where
The
they come
electric
from."
bowling ball, Jalen Warren. It's like, yeah, it's whatever the hell comes to mind.
Acknowledge him. I did it.
Yeah.
Did you notice I did the little Roman Reigns in there? I did the acknowledge him. Like that was my little Samoan nod.
I might have only seen the first video so far. I might have been
Damn.
planning to watch the other three after the show today.
All
So
right,
yeah,
all right,
outed
all
me.
right, all right, all right. It's okay.
Yeah,
Um,
but I don't know, man. It's fun to wait. I already lost my train of thought. What were we just talking about?
I don't know. We were talking about OCs and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Um,
I mean, like, it's fun to look at like what that coach is going to bring to the team. I mean, like I think this started like when the Matt Canada thing happened, and I was like, okay, what's the offense going to look like now? And but it's cool to see to get like a sneak peek before you see whatever they're going to get. We already knew what Arthur Smith was going to be, but it's fun to see that how his stuff is translated to what we do.
yeah. Are you feeling like if you put it on a scale of 1 to 10 of how happy you are with your purchase, how do you feel about RD Smith so far?
Yeah, y- 7.5, we'll say. You know,
Okay.
he hasn't been. I wouldn't call him amazing, but again, I'd definitely call him top 15 OC in the league. I think that's probably fair. He's shown that like I think Arthur Smith gets a bad rap because of the Falcons. When in reality, I mean the Falcons, I think because like I think they had some really bad injuries going into his last like stretch of his time in Atlanta, where they were like competing for the division title, and they ended up fourth in division, but like every single team in the division was like a win or two apart from each. I think his career looks a little worse on paper than it probably was, and you saw what he was able to do with Derrick Henry in Tennessee.
Yeah. No. I mean, he was great with Tennessee. I think he went 7 and 10 every year with Atlanta, if I recall. They had some good
Yeah,
skill players, but yeah, they were never able to really sort of take flight, as it were.
they missed on the quarterback too. That's what'll get you fired.
That is true. They might have missed again, by the way. Kirk Cousins doesn't look very good. I think we're seeing a whole class of guys fall off right now. And I mean, it doesn't. I don't think it's any coincidence that both of these two are major injuries. With I was thinking of Rogers and Cousins, who both are. Are they both coming
Yeah,
off Achilles? Was it Achilles for Cousins?
I
I
think
know.
so. Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
I think they're both coming off Achilles, and that's, people forget, man, until like really recently, that was a surgery where people were always like, that's gonna be tough to like
Yeah.
even come back from, like, because you just most of the time just aren't the same. And I thought, I don't know about you, I thought Rogers looked like a diminished player yesterday. I still think he can be a really good quarterback, but it's abundantly clear that the mobility element of his game is no longer part of it. He reminded me, God's honest truth, he reminded me he was better. He's better and his arm is stronger, but he reminded me, God's honest truth, of 2020 Ben.
Yeah, that's not a bad compare. I said that kind of loud. Yeah, that's not a bad comparison. The one that I was thinking of was Minnesota Brett Favre,
Okay,
where
yeah.
the flashes of greatness are still there. Certainly, I mean, you saw that Hail Mary threw to the back of the end zone to what's his name. But you have those moments still in there, and I mean, you saw that there were definitely a couple of throws in that game with Rodgers where you're like, okay, he's not washed. I saw some people in the chat, and I thought I might have been like engaging with him a little bit, but it was like Rodgers is washed. He sucks now, and I'm like, nah, that's a little. It's a little
Yeah.
disingenuous there. I mean, you also saw in weeks past, like where they weren't playing against a top tier defense, where Rodgers can still make pinpoint accurate throws at points.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, I'll use the flashes of greatness example again to show he's just he's not what he once was, and I think that's another huge reason they traded for Devonte Adams, was to try and squeeze all the juice out of this orange, if you will. But I'll tell you what, if you're only putting up 15 points with Devonte Adams, who is like, you traded your coach for, basically, Jesus Christ, I mean, you better be winning games, and they are not doing.
Yeah, it's looking really bad over there. I don't get what they're doing at all. But I do think though that Rodgers, he's on borrowed time at this point,
Oh
I
yeah,
think clearly. I wouldn't be surprised he plays 1 or 2 more years, but
if that.
I didn't realize he was going to turn 41 soon, they said.
Yeah,
Like that
yeah.
I was thinking of him like 38. But it makes sense. He was drafted the year after Ben, right? I mean,
Yep, 2006. Yeah. Or
it's 2005, I think.
2005,
Yeah,
2005,
that's a
excuse me,
long
yeah.
time ago now, man.
Which, by the way, shout out to the 49ers. What the hell were you doing taking Alex Smith over Aaron Rodgers? As someone
Crazy.
that likes Alex Smith and thinks he's actually pretty underrated as a player, what the hell were you thinking?
Yeah, not great. Not great.
Mm-mm.
But yeah, I think I don't know. I don't know what's left for him because that team, I mean, what are they going to do? They're 2-5 now. What's their best case scenario? They get back close to 500. I don't even know if that's going to be plausible. At 2-5, shit, to get 8 wins, you got to go what, 6-4 or something. I mean, that's a tough turnaround at 2-5.
Oh man, I mean, I doubt it. Like, we might see Rodgers pull out some solid stretch of quarterback play for a couple games or for half a season or so. That's definitely possible. And like maybe they do go on some kind of run and make it to 8-9 or 9-8. I doubt it, but let's just say it, because let's say Rodgers is able to pull out the last little bit of greatness he has, and goes on one more run. He won't, but let's say he does. Do you see this team winning in the postseason? I don't. Do you think they beat Buffalo? I don't. Do you think they beat KC? I don't. I like our chances in the playoffs against them. And I mean, when have I ever said anything good about us in the playoffs? They're just. I'm not scared. I wasn't scared of Aaron Rodgers on the Jets, and I wasn't even scared of Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams on the Jets. And so
Yeah.
there's a huge problem. And I know we already talked about it, but really, firing Robert Saleh, who's been one of the best, I know he's a head coach, but like been one of the best defensive coordinators or defensive minds probably in the entire league. For what reason? Oh yeah, it's because they were gonna demote Nathaniel Hackett. We can't have that because that's Rodgers Boo Bear. And you go down this long spiral of ego, and now they're just suffering all the consequences that they possibly could have for it. And I'm here for it.
Yeah, cook them. You cooked them. I love it. Yeah. No, I'm glad the Steelers came away with a dub. I hate the Jets just personally. I'm not a fan. Just never, I don't know. Something
I liked
about,
him in the Rex Ryan days.
I just never liked the Jets, man. They always just rub me the wrong way. It was a great, just like, I don't know. It was just great. I felt like in that second half, the Steelers really started to kind of assert themselves and make you say,
Hmm.
okay, like wait a second, this could be something here. And I don't know if it's going to remain this way. Like I don't know that you can off of one game say I think Russell Wilson is back to close to being who he once was or what have you, but oh man, he looked good to me yesterday. It looked like he had the offense organized. He was doing stuff at the line of
That is true.
scrimmage.
Yeah.
He was doing stuff at the line of scrimmage. I know Pickens talked about it after the game, just like the little bit of like, using the count, the cadence and stuff. Stuff that just like these young guys, the Pickett's and
Mm.
stuff of the world, just like you didn't have that in the offense. And at some point, when you just take all of the advantages away, then it's like you have nothing left, and I think it's just so obvious watching a game like this where it's Rodgers versus Wilson and being like these guys they see things better, even if they're
Sure.
not physically maybe what they once were, they're still just able to get it where it needs to go. And I don't think, to me, Wilson doesn't look physically diminished. He's slower than
Mm.
he was, but I mean, I thought he threw the ball well yesterday. I know you didn't love the accuracy, but I think he was just lofting moonballs, man. I think he was trying to play a little Joe Flacco kind of action.
I'd say step down. And I would use that carefully, because I wouldn't, again, washed is a term that gets thrown around so quickly. And no, 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 no. But there are just, you could see it, man. I mean, those moon balls used to be dropped in a bucket. Now they're dropped in a shopping cart, if you catch my
Okay,
drift.
okay, okay.
And and that's fine. That's fine. I mean, Wilson's been in the league for how long? He's been on how many different teams? He's had all this change over the last number of seasons. He still has more bathrooms in his house this season than he does touchdown passes, but he's only played in one game, so that's okay. I'm sorry, I had to throw that meme out there again. I loved that. But no, but it's all good. I'm not super attached to the decision at this point. I just kind of want to see where it goes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's really interesting. Um, as we talked about so many times, where it just the way that this sets up for the future of the franchise is it's just really fascinating. And if they can get to the playoffs, I mean, 5-2 now. I mean, you start to say at 5-2 that okay, this goes from being a team where you say, I think they should win 9, maybe 10. I think you're getting now, especially if they get a win this week against the Giants. If you get to 6-2, okay, now I'm looking
Hmm.
at you got to win 11, maybe 12. You know what I mean? Like, and that's not even crazy at that point to win 12 games at being 6-2. That just means going 6-3 the rest of the way. So I mean,
If I can borrow a Tomlinism, it would be a reasonable expectation.
it
And
would.
that's fine, so it would be interesting. It'd be interesting to see them go on that on some kind of run there. You were mentioning a second ago, and I lost my train of thought. Wasn't able to tell you about it, but like this thing about how experience plays a factor, and about how there's these guys like Russ, and about how they just understand different things about the offense, or they understand like just how to look at defenses and things like that. And you saw little moments of that in the game. I'm sure you saw it, and especially because you have to edit the damn footage every week. But I noticed it, so I know you did. Where it was didn't he like moved one of the backs, or like maybe motion, and like no, you're on this side, and then was like pointing at Pickens, you come over here. He was actually directing people on where to go. He was here, let me use another Tomlinism. He was directing traffic as opposed to being a part of said traffic. So
Yeah.
that was cool to see.
Yeah, no, he absolutely was. And I think it had a positive, impact. You didn't see any bobbled snaps. I got to give a shout out to
He
this
didn't
kid.
blink.
Yeah, he didn't blink because I would have cut his eyelids off if he did. But I got to give a shout out to this McCollum character who was playing center for us last night. I thought really solid, covering for Zach Frazier. I didn't feel as though there was really any part of that game where I said, I'm really missing Zach Frazier. And then that kid at right guard playing for James Daniels just continues to be fantastic. McCormick, he just looks unbelievable. He looks like you could move on from James Daniels and not even think twice about it at this point.
It's weird, isn't it? Yeah, like, well, McCormick I love, and hopefully he stays. They're just get sometimes with guys where you're like, can we just for everybody's sanity not let him go? I didn't want them to let Kevin Dotson go, for
Yeah.
instance, and we see how bad of a decision that was. But that's neither here nor there. So with McCormick, that's all well and good. I can't remember what's the kid's name playing at center. Ryan
McCollum, I think.
McCollum. That's it. I think it was McCulloch or McCollum. But what I loved, I noticed this like right away, is that he was a very, how do I say this correctly, self-aware player, where he was going up against, I can't name the Jets D lineman offhand. I could a couple years ago, but I can't remember anymore. But I know they have a really solid D line, probably one of the best in football. And right away, he was making like chip blocks and like getting in the way, as opposed to trying to. He went into that game, I guarantee you, being like, okay, I have no experience. I'm going up against one of the best lines in football. I'm going to get in the way, and I'm going to chip block, and I'm going to burn time, I guess, on runs, as opposed to I'm going to knock this amazing D lineman on his ass, because that wasn't going to happen. And so I appreciated he came into that game with like this self-aware game plan. It was actually kind of refreshing to see, because how often do we see Tomlin teams run their head into a brick wall, and the brick wall never breaks? So it was nice to see that he had this game plan kind of from the get-go of, I'm going to do what I need to, and I'm not going to go outside of my abilities. Very Belichickian, I guess.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think that that's some really wise assessment of the young Ryan McCollum's play at center. Yeah, just impressive. For me, the line has. I gotta give props. I don't even know.
Oddly improved.
Yeah, I don't even know the guy's name, the offensive line coach. But they're doing a good job, man. They have now started what, like 9 or 10 different guys, and
Yeah.
they just don't miss a beat.
They've really been making a lot of chicken salad out of a lot of chicken shit. I mean, like pretty much what is it, game one? I think Troy Fautanu goes down. It's like, okay, first round pick, first game, he's out. It's like, well, shit. And he looked great before he went out. I don't know if anybody remembers, but he looked like he was lighting people on fire. And so, of course, he goes down quick. And then
Yeah.
I think our O line is almost all backups, even if you want to count Broderick Jones, even though he's a first round pick, he is technically a backup right now. And wow, like the fact that we've had nearly the amount of run success that we've had, I got to give them a lot of credit for. And I also think not to go back to Arthur Smith for too long, but I also think that he has a part to play in that as well, with his
Uh,
run fits and whatnot.
oh, definitely. And I mean, the progression with the running backs too.
Oh yeah.
You got to give Najee a lot of credit. We have not even really mentioned Najee today, but honestly, he's been phenomenal, man. The last 2 weeks, excuse the gum. My mouth was just like tasting gross. You know how sometimes you're like, I need to chew gum. I know that's not what you should do on the radio, but like,
no, but it's like with Najee in particular, I love that he has turned into this player that always plays like you just insulted his grandmother.
He does.
Shout out to Najee, where like I still think that at the not to be stubborn, because I love Najee and I don't ever try to pretend that I don't. He still has the same problem that he always kind of has, where efficiency is just not a trait he possesses. But
right.
when you can like, what's the joke that like you ask Najee to get 3 yards, he'll get 3 yards. You ask Najee to get 5 yards, and he'll get 3 yards. So there is that. But like now that he's occasionally breaking off runs, like it's not like a dimension to his game necessarily, but now it's something, right? Now
Yeah.
he can play with something that's not just reliant on wearing out the defense. You know?
Yeah, I saw a stat earlier today. I think it was yards of or runs of 20 plus, or maybe it's 25 plus.
Yeah, I saw this.
And it was like the last 2 weeks or something, he's had 3 of them, and like the first 59 games of his career, he had 3 of them. So he really is starting to get unlocked, and he looks a lot faster. I noticed that. I noted that in the preseason, not to be that guy, but I did, that he had lost some weight, and I was really expecting that it was going to impact and make himself, make him a little quicker. And it does. A couple of those runs he's had the last 2 weeks, he's breaking away from people and running away from them, and that was the big thing that we never saw from him, even at his best.
My bad. Call me a tinfoil hat theorist. That's fine. I do think that part of this is the motivation that Najee got from them not picking up his extension. I really do think that they were like, all right, earn your extension then. Now, if he chooses to go sign somewhere else, that's all well and good, and he can do that. It's a free market. But I really do think that they, in some capacity, were almost trying to like light a fire under his ass. And you can see the effect that it's had, because he's running, like I said, like you just insulted his most cherished ancestor.
Yeah,
and I love it. It's very fun to watch.
No, I know, but he's always run like that too. I mean, he just has so much.
It's different this year, though, man.
He just has so much.
Different.
He's such a mean player on the field, and as I always say, he should be a captain. I hate that the Steelers only have 3 captains every year.
Yeah. Isn't that just generic? Like, what, do other people have 6?
Oh yeah, tons of teams have more. Some teams have like 8. Which is like too many, but
that makes no sense at all.
You could have 2 on each side of the ball. Somebody said,
like 3.
Kevin, the elder god, said I turned into Danny Smith. Yeah, because I had to pop some bubble gum.
Oh man, I hate, like, okay, shout out to Danny Smith, because he's done a great job, especially the last couple years. This year in particular, but the last few. But every fucking time, and I see he just has this massive wad. He has a baseball amount of bubble gum in his mouth, and it like my jaw hurts just looking at it. I'm like, this dude, is that like a workout for him? Like,
yeah, not my jaw, my teeth. How much sugar?
Yeah.
He's got sugar in his mouth all the time. What? That's so crazy. It's not good. But I mean, hey, he's old and he's got all his teeth, as far as I can tell. So good for him.
Or he has none of his teeth.
Yeah, they're all fake. They're all fake. I mean, hey, once you get them pulled out, whatever, chomp away. But shout out to him. I talked about it in the show a little bit, and I'll talk about it again here. But the penalty they called, the leverage penalty they called
That was
on
bullshit.
Minka. Come on, man. That was That was horrible. That was like he didn't it was not the spirit of the rule at all. He did not use any other player for leverage. He just kind of swam over them. I thought that was so just not in the spirit of the rule, and just referees totally over officiating. And that's the kind of thing that, you know, across a lot of sports now, we're getting the sky judge thing, or like the instant review, where it's not the coach having to challenge it. They just kind of buzz down and they say, nah, come on, that's not a penalty. I think that that's the kind of stuff that we need to start having in the game, because
It was progress.
that's a huge play. I mean, it didn't end up mattering in this game specifically because it ended up being a blowout. But I mean, we've seen this in the past. I'll never forget that stupid freaking Chargers game, the last game I ever went to in Pittsburgh with my uncle in 2018, where they had to like
The John Bostic game.
when they like blocked that kick, and then it was like they called him off sides, and then yeah, and then there was also the one where Phillip Rivers hit that long touchdown, and their guy was totally false started by like a full second. Like, that's just the kind of stuff that, like, when it matters, it should really get taken care of. And when in the matter of scoring plays, that was a 3-point shift, because they went from not having a point to getting 2 points. Like, that's not good. It's not good. You can't have that.
No, but nothing surprises me on that front anymore. I mean, like, it actually kind of shocks me whenever we get a game where we get a slanted or call or two in our favor. So I mean, I guess I don't really have anything else to say about that matter. I do love the Sky Judge. I do love the Sky. I thought that the XFL did a great job bringing that in, and like I remember I watched a game or two of the XFL, and it was like immediately like, Sky Judge says this is indeed a catch, first down. You're like, how hard was that? Like, it's, but
I know.
you know that money is on the line, and you know that like it's no coincidence that all of these horrible referee circumstance in any sport. I'm a huge MMA fan, and you see it in MMA with the judges as well. That all of this bullshit started happening right around the time that sports betting became super, super popular. I'm sure those two things are completely and utterly unrelated.
I mean, we've been complaining about referees in sports since the dawn of time, dude.
But the last couple years, come on. You can't tell me it hasn't gotten significantly worse.
I don't know. I don't think it has. I think, if anything, in a lot of sports, it's gotten better. Like, baseball for sure, because they judge them based on the robot umpire that calls balls and strikes without fail.
Oh, that'd be nice.
They, so they still have a human calling it, but like they grade the umpires based on how well they do. So
who's the umpire that just retired, who they said is like the worst umpire of all time?
Oh yeah,
you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, Angel Hernandez.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
I have never seen somebody like that. Dude got a reception akin to Nazi war criminals.
I know. He was the Matt
it was
Canada.
kind of funny.
He was the Matt Canada of baseball umpires.
Oh.
Like, you don't have to know baseball to be like, oh yeah, Angel Hernandez.
Even I knew the name once you said it. I was like, oh yeah, that's the guy. Holy shit. I've never seen somebody get so many. There was, I think, a 14-minute compilation video that someone had made of all of his wrong calls just in recent years. And for anybody that hasn't watched those, like, wrong call compilations, every call only takes a couple of seconds.
Amazing.
So, how many does that fit into like a 14 or 15-minute video? God damn.
Amazing.
I don't know. That's hysterical to me.
I love the internet, though, when somebody just decided to do that. Like, how do you track all that footage down? You know what I mean?
Someone had a lot of time on their hands. God bless them.
That's insane. I want you to go through and make a compilation of every first down throw of Ben Roethlisberger's career. Can you do that for me by tomorrow?
Depends on how big of a blank check you're giving me, as Mike T would say.
Yes. Could you imagine that compilation? Like, that would be such a stupid compilation. It was like every time Ben Roethlisberger threw for a first down in his career, it'd be like, what? Like 300, like it'd be like 200 times a year or something like that, right?
That
so
would be
stupid.
Hilarious. Someone's probably already done it.
I'm sure. Pittsburgh, Toddy says Najee actually had 15 runs of 20 plus prior to this year and actually led the league in 23 with 8, I believe it or not. I think maybe it was 25-yard runs then. I don't remember what the tweet was specifically. I'm not trying to be pedantic. it was just something about because you saw it
And
too, right?
yeah, and like Najee, like I know exactly what you're talking about. It was where it was like 3 the last 2 weeks and then 2 the previous. I thought it was like 80 some games, but I'm probably overshooting that.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where Najee, and like if I could, I guess, build on that point too. Najee, another thing is like it's just is the efficiency metric, I guess, where like it felt like he always got good yardage at the end of the game if you gave him enough carries, more often than not at least. But it was like the hardest way possible to get that yardage. And so now that you have at least a couple of breakaway plays that he's starting to pack into the line, like it makes things better. It just makes things easier. You don't have to
Yeah.
rely on those deep balls 40 yards downfield to get a good splash play.
No, but they did get him. I think they had
Yeah.
number of plays over 30 yards yesterday. The Muth catch and run was so sweet, by the way. I have that tweet.
I
25 it
love
was
Muth.
25-yard runs. So in the last 2 games he has 3 of those. In his first 56 games he had 3 of them as well. So
There it
uh
is.
not trying to be pedantic, it's just that's the tweet I had seen and that I was referencing. Um but yeah, I mean, Najee, the whole run game is really cooking right now. They got to be in the top 10 in running, I would imagine, right? They must be, especially with
I
all
don't
those
know.
Fields yards and stuff like that. Have to be.
Yeah, I say Fields was packing like 110 yards passing per game, so I'm sure a lot of that was rushing yardage. I do
Hmm.
love the people that were like trying to make the comparison. And we're like, well, Mitch Trubisky had like 150 yards, so I mean, he was better than Justin, as if people didn't have eyes and couldn't watch Fields consistently move the ball with his feet. I
Yeah.
don't know. People are silly. If you're gonna be a box score reader, then just read the box score and never have an opinion about football ever again.
That's one way to go about it. Unfortunately, never
I
the
can't
way
stand
that.
box scores, man. I can't stand box score readers. That's like one of my biggest pet peeves. Or like people the ring count argument, where it's like, is ring culture? You would know this better than I. Is ring culture worse in basketball or football? Because I hear both.
Oh no, it's worse in it's the worst in basketball for sure.
And it's like
No.
if you just want to make it a pedantic counting contest where teams mean absolutely nothing, then I mean go study that. But this is a game with 22 people on each side of the ball, or excuse me, between both sides of the ball every fucking play, where there's a lot of moving parts going on and a
No,
lot
you're
of
right.
luck and fluky shit happens.
You're right, and
Drives me
realistically,
nuts.
realistically, that's the case with any team sport. Truthfully, I mean,
Yeah.
the idea of championship as success, I think, is definitely overrated. I do have the ranking, by the way. Steelers are ninth in the league in rushing yards. They're second in the league in attempts. Um, so I mean, that's pretty good, man. They got almost 1,000 yards rushing, and they got almost 400 more yards rushing than their opponents, which is typically going to mean good things because that's going to mean you're controlling the ball and you're possessing it and doing a good job of it. I think that their average drive time, I'm looking at this, 3 minutes and 4 seconds. It's fifth best in the league. Can you imagine
Nice.
based on what we were last year? And the last
Yeah.
couple years where it was like three and out, three and out, we were possessing the ball for like 35 seconds of possession. Sometimes not even that if they were all incomplete.
Yeah. Like we're literally like 8, 10, 12 seconds off the clock. And it's like we're punting back. It's like that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Good job, D. Like I don't know.
No,
That
brutal.
stuff again, it drove me crazy, but it's so good to see long suffocating drives because I mean that's always been Mike Tomlin's MO. He's never when we had the the killer bees were more like I don't want to say this like they didn't coach them well because of course they were coached well. Mike Tomlin did a great job with them, but like I almost want to say that the killer bees were just more like good fortune than it
Yeah.
was Mike Tomlin building a super intricate offense. He's always been a ground and pound guy, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I hear that point. I wouldn't say that it was like good fortune. I would just say it was just it was individual brilliance on the same team, if that makes
Yeah,
sense. Like
but good fortune
they
brought them
were
all together at the
they
same
were the
time.
result of like great improvisational acting. It's like the difference
Yeah.
between what the Steelers have been lately trying to be is like an Oscar contending movie where it's like you have the best screenwriter and you have this director and you have this and you have that. The problem is the last couple years they've had really shitty directors because Kenny
Mhm.
Pickett and Mitchell Trubisky have really sucked. And when they fired both of those guys, Mason Rudolph came in and he shot a few days on Tatooine, and he really pulled the movie together last year and got it to a workable place. This year, obviously, you're in a different spot with Fields and Wilson now, but um, I just think that like in that era, it was more of like SNL, where it was just like it was funny. It wasn't like the most perfectly written, funny, hilarious thing that ever happened, but the spontaneity of it and the individual performances, uh,
And you
of
saw it every week became part of the energy.
exactly. That was what it was with those teams. It was just so chaotic, but it was like a beautiful chaos. And the Steelers just
Yeah.
have had to have everything go right the last few years to manufacture a win. And Tomlin said this after last year, to his credit. He was like, we need to be able to manufacture victory easier.
Yeah.
And that's been the case. Look, if you look at the Steelers now, week 1 we won by 8 points. Week 3 we won by 10. And then the last 2 weeks we won by 19 and 22. That's 4 games this year already that the Steelers have won by more than one score. Think about that. I mean, it's happening
That's
right
already
under our
broken
nose.
records for the last number of years.
I mean, it's right under our nose. They're not actually winning games the same way that they usually did.
No.
Shoot, the only 2 games that were decided by like 3 points were the 2 that they lost to the Colts and the Cowboys.
And
The
again,
other
like, not to bring up old shit, yeah, but again, they're a bad snap and 1 fourth down stop away from being 7-0 right now. 7-0,
no,
6-0. I
yeah,
can't remember.
they would be 7-0. But yeah, I
7-0.
mean, I'm with you. I'm with you, man. I don't know. I think it feels like we're hitting the ground running on something that could end up being really good. I mean, I think you do want to sit with this win as a fan, obviously, for a day and just kind of enjoy it and live with it. But I
Yeah.
do think if you look forward and you look the next 2 games, they got the Giants at home this week, then they got a bye week, and then they got the Commanders, which obviously Jaden Daniels is tearing it up. But if you're the Steelers, you're an elite defense. You got to go in against a rookie quarterback, and you got to make stuff happen. I think they got a good chance here to sneak out to 7-2, and that would just be really phenomenal.
I wasn't able to hear part of that. Well, which rookie quarterback were we talking about?
Sorry, I was saying like I was just saying like the next couple weeks they got
Okay.
Giants at home, and then they got the
Yeah.
bye week, and then they play the Commanders. And Jaden Daniels obviously is really
Okay.
good, but if you're an elite defense, you got to be able to do work against a rookie quarterback. And if that's the case, they take care of business these next couple of games. He's sitting at seven and
So
two, man.
I think we're gonna lose to Washington, oddly. Like, not to be pessimistic, but like because of how good Jaden is, he's had, I think they said, the best start to a quarterback's career in NFL history.
Oh, he's been fantastic. I mean, I'm
So
not taking
something
anything. Yeah.
that's kind of crazy, That's not just. Now, I think you can maybe spin that into a negative and say that that is unattainable efficiency that's bound to fall off. And that you could also make the argument that Carson Wentz went through something similar where he had this soul-crushing efficiency for about 2 seasons and then kind of fell off after that. That could be what's going on. Who knows? I know that Cliff Kingsbury is a fucking excellent coordinator. He maybe wasn't fit to be a head coach right away, but you can clearly see that the guy's talented at calling an offense. But I don't know. I have a bad feel. Like, we also Dan, what is it? Dan, what the hell's his name? Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn, former Falcons head coach, 28-3. But Dan Quinn is a solid defensive coordinator whenever he's more in his comfort zone. So, and Tomlin always just seems to struggle with grizzled veteran head coaches like John Gruden or something like that. I just get the feeling we'll lose that game. But I do like that. I think that we're definitely way more on an upward trajectory than we are on any kind of downward trajectory. That's absolutely for sure.
Yeah.
And we haven't been able to say that in a long time.
Yeah. Mateo says, I will balance that opinion by saying the Steelers are not losing another game this season. I love it. Let's do it. 15-2. I'll take it.
15-2. Yeah, that'd be
let,
great.
Let Russ cook, man. Let him cook.
I hate the 17-game schedule. I absolutely hate it.
Me too.
It triggers my OCD so badly.
I just hate the records. 10-7. That's so ugly.
Yeah.
And because it
Like,
makes 10 it makes 10 and it makes 10 wins look worse cuz 10-7 is
yeah.
10-7 does not feel impressive.
No, 10-6 was like this like outside before the 7 seed playoffs and whatnot. It was like, oh, you might make the playoffs, you might not make the playoffs. 11-5 didn't even feel like a guarantee at times. Mike Tomlin, Bill Cowher, like that the year that he was able to win the Super Bowl, he went from 7-5 to 11-5, and it still was not like certain he'd make the playoffs.
Yeah, they
So you
made
never
it
know with that
barely
kind of
in with a
shit.
6, yeah.
Yeah.
I used to like
Right, like
13-3. That was my favorite record. Like if the Steelers ever had
same.
13-3, I just like there's something about that where you're like, we had a good ass season, man.
I'm always partial to the 15-1, but I'm sure that's probably never going to happen again
Yeah,
in my
but how often
lifetime.
has that even happened? Like twice or three times
No.
in NFL history?
Yeah, and I mean one of those was the Culpepper. No, it was the Cunningham Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
And they had Randy Moss and all those guys, and then Gary Anderson misses a kick, and the defense collapsed, and blah 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 blah.
1998, we're calling out 1998 Minnesota
Yeah,
Vikings right now. How
I
about that?
I remember a comedian, I don't remember who it was, but called them the mamby pamby indoor glorified arena ball team. I
Ooh,
always thought that was just so brutal.
ouch, ouch.
Like,
Uh,
look, man, you had Randall Cunningham, Randy Moss, and what was it, Chris Carter. Like, dude, that's an offense.
yeah.
You put whatever asterisks you wanted or whatever arena you want to put around it. That's an
No, that team
offense.
was awesome, man. I loved watching that team as a kid. I was a big fan. I used to play them on NFL 2K back in the day with Randy Moss on
Oh
the
yeah.
cover. Hell yeah.
And then
Um,
Dante Culpepper when he was like 100 overall or whatever when he first started.
yeah, when he was on Madden 02, he was the cover guy. I remember that.
And then
Crazy.
the Madden curse fucking took his ass out quick.
Like a sniper, dude. That was rough. The Madden curse is bad. I would never do
Brutal.
it. You got to be nuts. I would never do it. There's no advantage. There's none.
See, I love the people like okay, so is it 100% the Madden curse? No, but I remember watching a video where someone broke it down and they mathematically said it was like a 30% chance, and I was like, that is disingenuous
It's got to be more than
because
that. It's got to
it
be
has to
more.
be. It has to be. I would love to maybe do a video on it one
You
day.
should. You should. That would do good, actually. You should do that. That would be. That's a good
Maybe.
video. I think that's a good
I
idea.
I try my best to stay in my wheelhouse of knowledge so that I don't speak out of depth.
Yeah, but all you got to do is
And
go year by year and just
yeah,
like look at who it was and like was their season. You just have to come up with a criteria. Was their season like affected? You know.
I will say though that like were some of the ones where they didn't count the Madden curse being a thing, like with Tom Brady being on the cover. But I would argue that getting outdueled by Nick Foles and Doug Peterson in the biggest game of your career at the time is kind of a stab in the gut. I'll
See, you
take
can
it.
make that case. You can make that
Yeah.
case. I think this is a good concept. I think this is a good idea.
Nick
Um,
Foles made Tom Brady eat shit in a huge game, and he will
anytime,
forever have my admiration for that.
anytime you get to say that, you're happy. That's what I've learned.
100%, hundred
Um,
percent.
yeah,
What have we got in the chat going on?
I don't know. People are just hanging out, hanging out.
Yeah,
Andre Romero says Antonio Brown just moved differently. Never seen anybody like it. I totally agree.
yeah.
Le'Veon the
He
same
he
way.
he ran like he was always in sand. Like
Mm-hmm.
wide receivers, they're always doing footwork in the sand. He felt like that was always like he could always cut and move and dagger and just he always knew where to be and he always knew how to be there.
Mm-hmm.
If I could, real quick, Brett Coleman had a great video about Ben and AB from back in the day, where they would talk. He talked about how they would read the defensive coverage pre-snap the exact same way without communicating it to each other, and would just instinctively know, oh, Antonio's going to go over here. Oh, Ben's going to throw it over. It was so much fun to watch because it's the closest thing you're going to get to like reading minds that really exists in the world. Is two dudes that know football were pretty well together. So
Yeah.
it was fun to see, and it was fun to AB would routinely have the top two defenders on the opposing team's defense. It would make them both look foolish,
Yeah.
and so
Constantly.
he was the greatest. As
He
much as I hate
was
the guy,
no, for my money, he was the best there was. At least in the new millennium, probably. Um, he was great, man. But I
if you want to
maybe
argue Jerry's better, then I wouldn't argue.
yeah, but I'm saying of like since 2000, I think
Yeah,
it's fair. Antonio's probably the best. I hope he makes the Hall of Fame. He's a terrible person, seemingly, but I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
For his on the field accomplishments, yeah, sure. He's one of those guys where, like, if you don't have him in the Hall of Fame, then your Hall of Fame just kind of takes a hit because he's irrefutably a Hall of Fame player.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
you don't. Do you want it to become the same thing with the baseball Hall of Fame, where like I really do care when people are taking roids in sports where you're getting punched in the head, if that makes sense, because that's just a totally separate thing. I don't care at all if you're hitting steroids to hit a baseball farther. I just don't care at all. I don't know. Does anybody in the chat agree with me on that? But
I'm I'm
that's where I stand.
I'm with you. I'm with you. You know, and it's a product of its time. You
And now you
can't
have these guys in the hall that aren't in the Hall of Fame and never will be because they tested positive in a sport where you're whack the ball with a stick game. Who
Well, and also
cares?
you have a ton of guys who are in the Hall of Fame that just weren't implicated with steroids before it became a scandal. Like
Yeah,
that's the thing that's arbitrary about it. It's like where do you cut it off? Like you just because someone said like listen, if you're going to have a Hall of Fame that doesn't have Barry Bonds or Pete Rose or Alex Rodriguez or Roger Clemens in it, then what the fuck is the point of the Hall of Fame?
yeah,
It's all an imaginary made up thing that honors people for a game that we invented that doesn't matter. A home run is not a real thing. That's not an actual feat. You know, it's something
fair.
we invented, and all sports are that way. And I hate that. I saw a conversation about this earlier this week in regards to like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where somebody, I think it was Dee Snider from Twisted Sister, was calling out the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because they finally inducted MC5, which is like an old like Detroit garage rock band. They're really super influential. They
Yeah.
like had a big impact. But they just only just in, they were like active in like the late 60s and they just inducted them this year. And the last one like died like 6 months ago, and he was
Oh, of
like,
course.
how about we like do this before people are dead? And I agree, man. Hall of Fame's it's
Vader.
for the people. Like it's why do we have to be petty? Like I said, when Pete Rose died, somebody was like, oh, they'll probably put him in the Hall of Fame now. And I was like, that's an even bigger slap in the face if you do it the second he dies. Cause it's like, what'd you punish the guy for then? Let him say he was a fucking Hall of Famer. Are you kidding me?
Shout out to Vader from WWE because that dude, like, everyone knew that he was on a very limited time, and like pretty much what is it, like the year, the next year, the year after that he died is when they put him in the Hall of Fame, and we're like, dude, he made a public note that he wanted to be in the Hall of Fame before he died, and you took that from him. Thank you very much, Vince McMahon. I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, if you want to get into talking about ways in which Vince McMahon is not the best,
That doesn't crack the top 75.
that doesn't crack the top 470,000. Okay, like
No.
it is what it is. Um, hey, listen, your Pittsburgh Steelers are 5-2. Russell Wilson's the starting quarterback. Shit's looking good, man. I'm excited. I can't wait to see what happens next week. I have to say, for the first time in a while, I'm like genuinely like pretty hyped up. I don't know. What do you think, Gage? What do you want to leave the people with as we start to get out of here for the night?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fun to see where things go from here. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like we have to beat, what is it, New York, right? We're playing New York at the Giants again.
Yeah, Giants. Yeah.
Okay, another New York team. I mean, but yeah, so we got to beat the Giants, and they got what, Danny Dimes, Danny Derps as their quarterback. And I mean, like we usually do badly against bad quarterbacks, but for some reason we beat the shit out of Daniel Jones whenever we play him. So that should be an easy win for sure. I mean, as close to an easy win as you'll get with Mike T Steelers, although that seems to be changing this year, so that's good. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it, whatever it is. And I mean, if we're sitting here in a couple weeks at 7-2 or something like that, I mean, it's a pretty interesting ball game from there. Because like, are we bound to hit some kind of skid? Sure, but do we balance out at an 11-6 ish kind of record? Maybe 12-5 if we get lucky in a game or two. It's very possible, and I'm excited to see where it goes. But I think other than that, that's about it. So follow me on Twitter. My Twitter is at Gage Ryan Video, and you can also follow my MMA page at Contender MMA, which is what I'm doing when I'm not making 5-star content.
Go over there and subscribe to Contender MMA. Do it, please. I would consider it a great personal favor for the many sacrifices I made today trying to make 15 versions of the stupid video to get it out to you guys. I hate YouTube. I'm so exhausted with their rigmarole. It's very frustrating because I don't know week to week what they want me to do. Very annoying. But if you want the
It literally
show,
just changes every week.
it does. And if you want the show clean, uncut, patreon.com/5SMU. I know I hammer it every week. I know most of the people probably listening to the radio show are Patreon subscribers as it is. But if you've been thinking about it, please hop over there. It really helps us out. You could get, I think, a premium video experience, no ads, none of that. $4 a month gets you in. I mean, I think it's worth it. It's $1 a month. If you ordered DoorDash tonight, you'd tip them $4. Come on, you hang out with me hours a week, literally hours a week. I think you can pay $1 a week, folks. But
Price
that's
of
not the
less than a
message.
coffee.
Exactly. But that's not the message I want to leave you with. The message I want to leave you with is the Steelers might have just ascended from a good team to a pretty good team. And I'm not ready to say they're a great team, but I think they might be a pretty good team. I think Russell Wilson presents a path forward that seems for once plausible that it could end up with a playoff win. I can squint and see it happening.
That's a
Um,
good way of putting it.
Before, like we talked about this specifically last year, just you couldn't even squint and see it happen. I mean, it was just you're not going to say, "Oh yeah, Kenny Pickett's going to beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs." But
No.
that team we saw yesterday, I saw a team, they scored 37 points, man. I don't care who it's on. I don't care about what the circumstances are. 37 points in the NFL is 37 points. So
One strip sack on Josh Allen, and we could very well be up against Buffalo.
exactly. And so, listen, I feel good about it. I'm willing to eat crow, willing to say I was probably wrong on the Justin Fields thing. Do they maybe win that game with Justin Fields anyway? Maybe. Probably not as easily as they do, but um, this is compelling. This is fascinating. This is good stuff. And much like the last 5 years, we're going to be back and talking about the Steelers quarterbacks again next week, I'm sure. Um, if you haven't caught the show yet, go check it out. Click on our homepage. You'll see it there. It's in 4 chunks. And until next time, I will catch you down the road on the next edition of 5 Star Radio. Adios.